So we are going to learn to solve systems of equations, meaning two or more equations, using a different method. But the first thing you're going to do is do this warm up by solving this system by graphing. So remember, in order to graph each line, you can either find the slope and the y-intercept, or you can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept by plugging in 0 for the other variable. So pause the video and solve the system, and then unpause it when you're ready to check your answer. So now that you have solved the system, hopefully your graph looks like this. And this is the solution, x equals 2 and y equals 3. And did you remember to check by plugging it into each equation? If you didn't do that yet, pause and check your answer. So I'm going to move on. If you need to pause the video so you can check any of the work to figure out where you went wrong, go ahead. But you know, we've been doing this method solving by graphing before, and did you find that it's pretty easy to make a little mistake and then your answer's wrong, and it's sometimes a little time consuming to figure it out? So maybe there's a better way, or at least another way. So we're going to learn a way, and it's called substitution. So if we come down here, let's talk about what substitution is. It's like if you're baking and you run out of an ingredient, like let's say you run out of oil and you're making brownies. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a recipe where you use applesauce instead of oil. So you would take out the oil and put in applesauce instead. So substitution in math is the same concept. You replace one thing for something else that's the same. So this is the same system you just graphed, so you know what the solution is. So let's go ahead and solve this using substitution. So again, the idea is that you want to substitute or replace something with another thing that's equivalent or the same. So notice y is equal to 1/2 x plus 2. That means y and 1/2 x plus 2 are the same value. They are equal to each other. So in the other equation, I can replace that y with, instead of y, I'm going to replace it with 1/2 x plus 2. And I'm also going to show you how to do this and keep track of what you're doing so you don't lose something. So I'm going to copy this bottom equation, but when I get to the y, instead of writing the y, I'm going to leave some big open parentheses with space and then keep going. So I wrote 3x plus 2 and then parentheses instead of y, and now the equal sign and the 12. And then inside the parentheses, and you can maybe do it in a different color, but I'm just going to highlight it in blue. Inside the parentheses, you put the expression that's the same as y, so 1/2 x plus 2. So we substituted. And now we're just going to simplify the left-hand side. So distribute the 2. So 2 times 1/2 is 1x. 2 times 2 is 4. 3x plus 1x is 4x. Subtract the 4. I'm just solving. So that gives me 4x equals 8. Divide by 4. X equals 2. Remember, that's what we got before when we solved the same system by graphing, so that's a great thing. Now, that's one of the answers. So now we know x is 2. So let's go back to our original equations, and we can plug the 2 for x into either one of these. If I want to find y, I think the top equation is easier. So I take y equals 1/2, and instead of the x, I plug in the 2. And then simplify 1/2 times 2 is 1. So y equals 3. So we solved. So let's remind ourselves of what we did. We found an equation that, in this case, it said y equals. It could be x equals. And we highlighted the y and the expression it's the same as. I highlighted the y in the other equation. I wrote the second equation, and in place of the y, I left empty parentheses. and then I replaced that y spot with 1/2 x plus 2. Then we solved it, and that gave us the x. And then to find the y, we plugged it back into either one of these, but the top one was easier, so we plugged it into the top equation to find y. So now I want you to pause the video and try this one. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. So hopefully you did well. Here's the substitution, the work to find x, substituting back into the first equation, the x value in order to find y. The solution's written out up here. Pause it if you need to. And when you're ready, we're going to move on to the next problem. So sometimes it's not quite as straightforward as the one we did. So in our first two examples, we had something that already said y equals. And in this case, we don't. So we might have to solve for a variable first. So you always want to try to find the easiest variable to solve for. So any variable that doesn't have a coefficient, a number in front, might be easy to solve for. So I think that that x is going to be easy to solve for. So I'm going to take the first equation and solve for x. It looks like fewer steps than solving for, say, y. So let me copy it under here. And then I want to solve for x, so isolate x. So I'm going to subtract the 3y. So now I have solved that equation for x. So now I know x, I'm going to use a different color, x is the same as negative 3y plus 8. So I want to substitute. It always has to be the other equation. It can't be the same one, or you'll just get something that says like x equals x. So I have x, so I'm going to replace x in the other equation. Notice we did y's before, and now we're doing x's. That's okay. So I will copy the bottom equation, negative 2, and in place of the x, I'm going to put empty parentheses, and then I'm going to keep writing. So plus 5y equals 17. And in those empty parentheses, I'm going to put the negative 3y plus 8. That's 8. Okay. And that was a messy 8. Make it a little easier to read. It's hard to read through the green. Okay. So distribute the negative 2. So that's 6y. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16 plus 5y equals 17. I'm going to combine 6y and 5y and get 11y. Add 16. 11y equals 33. Divide by 11, y equals 3. We're almost there. We know what y equals, and now we want to substitute the y back into either the first equation, the second equation, or the one we solved for to find x. I think that one looks the easiest. So we're going to do x equals negative 3 times y, which is 3, plus 8. So x equals negative 9 plus 8. So x equals negative 1. So we solved it. We're done. Now I'm going to do one more example where we do it together, and then you're going to try this one. So we really only had to do one step to solve this equation for x. Sometimes maybe you have to work a little harder. Let's see if these two equations, which variable we think is the easiest to solve for. I think maybe the first equation, and I'm going to try solving for y. It's really personal choice. You could have chosen something different. So I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to try to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 6x. 2y equals negative 6x plus 18. And then I need to divide by 2. So y equals negative 3x plus 9. So I successfully solved this equation for y. So y is the same as negative 3x plus 9. So again, in the other equation, so I can't use the top one, I'm going to replace the y because I've isolated y. I'm going to replace that y with negative 3x plus 9. So let's see if I do this over here. I have negative 3x plus 8, and in place of y, I'm going to put a set of parentheses, give myself a divider here, equals 18. And in the parentheses, I'm going to write the thing that y is the same as, which is negative 3x plus 9. And keep track for the sake of knowing all the steps, but that's where I substituted. And now simplify this. So distribute the 8. So 8 times negative 3 is negative 24x plus 72 equals 18. Negative 3x minus 24 is negative 27x. And subtract 72 from both sides. So 18 minus 72 is negative 54. Divide both sides by negative 27. And that gives me x equals positive 2. Look at that, we're almost done. So now that we know x, I can plug it into the first equation or the second equation or the one I solve for. That one looks easiest if I want to find y. So y equals negative 3, and I replace the x with the 2 plus 9. So y equals negative 6 plus 9. So y equals 3. So now pause the video, try this one, and when you're ready, unpause it and check to see if you're right. So now that you've had a chance to check, I solved the bottom equation for the y and then substituted that. Sorry, I solved the top equation for y and then substituted it into the bottom equation for y. And that's definitely the easiest one. It's possible you could have solved for a different variable, and if you did it correctly, you'd get the same thing, but you can check all your work.